Chapter 10: The Lost. Over 800 passengers and nearly 700 crew members lost their lives in the Titanic disaster. Most of the passengers who died were from third class, about 550 people. Among the victims in first or second class, nearly all were men. 54 victims were children. All except one was from third class. Many of the crew had lived in Southampton, England. More than 500 households lost at least one family member. At one school, the teacher asked all the children who had a relative on the Titanic to stand. Every child in the class rose. What happened to the bodies of the dead? 2 days after the disaster, White Star Line sent several ships looking for them. 328 bodies were found. Some of them floated in the water, lifted by their life jackets. They looked like they were sleeping. Others were too hard to identify. They were buried at sea. John Jacob Astor IV was identified by the initials inside his collar. His body was covered in soot. It's likely he died when one of the funnels fell over and crushed him. The bodies were taken to Halifax, Canada. Some were claimed by family members. The rest were buried in nearby cemeteries. Hundreds of bodies were never recovered. They were trapped within the ship at the bottom of the sea. Around the world, people remained shocked by the disaster and the terrible loss of life. The Titanic was supposed to be unsinkable. How could such a tragedy have happened? The U.S. inquiry found that the crew had not been prepared for an emergency. The Senate blamed the British Board of Trade for having outdated rules about the number of lifeboats that ships were required to carry. They also believed that Captain Smith, perhaps spurred on by J. Bruce Ismay, went too fast in dangerously icy water. The British inquiry did not blame Captain Smith. The Senate stated their recommendations. First, all ships were to have lifeboats for everyone on board. Crew members must be trained on how to lower the lifeboats and properly row them. Ship crews were to have regular lifeboat drills for the passengers. The Senate also recommended that all ships install wireless radios operating 24 hours a day. Not every ship used wireless radios when the Titanic sank. If the Titanic and the Carpathia had not both had them, there would have been no rescue, and many more lives would have been lost. In 1914, Canada, the United States, and countries in Western Europe joined together to start the International Ice Patrol. The patrol used boats and later planes to locate icebergs in the Atlantic Ocean and alert ships in the area. Traveling by ship definitely became safer, but the great age of luxury liners was coming to an end. Why? There was a newer, much faster way to cross the ocean: in an airplane.